Bionicle Legends 3 Power Play. Written by Greg Farshty, recording by Luis Alarcon Ramos. Chapter 4. The journey of the new tower came to an abrupt halt. They had arrived at the edge of a vast gorge. Below, a stream of molten lava wound its way through the rock. The gap was too wide to jump and too long to go around without hours of walking. But the Matoran that Toa Nuparu had spotted was somewhere on the other side. They might not have hours to spare to reach them. Jala turned to Nuparu. "You'll have to fly us over."
"Now wait a minute," Kongu broke in. "Let's be sensible. Nuparu and I can switch masks, and I'll do the flying."
Jala was going to respond, but never got the chance. Instead, it was Nuparu who spoke up. "That does make sense. I can't argue with it. But Destiny, for whatever reason, gave me this mask. There has to be a reason for that."
"Destiny has a sense of humour?" jeered Kongu.
"I think I'm supposed to have it. I'm not going to give it up. Not yet," Nuparu replied. Then he broke into a grin. "Besides, flying's kind of fun."
"Wonderful," said Kongu, shaking his head. "They can deep carve that on our memorial stones. But at least Nuparu had fun."
Nuparu rose into the air and grabbed onto Kongu. Before the Tower of Air could protest, Nuparu had him halfway across the gorge. When they reached the other side, he unceremoniously dropped Kongu to the ground. "This is amazing," cried Nuparu. "Why, if I built some tools that would help me stay level and steer, this mask would work even better." In short order, Huki and Matoran crossed over in a similar fashion. Hali had wanted to go last. She had a terrible headache that seemed to get worse the closer they got to the centre of the island, but Jala insisted that he should act as rear guard. Nuparu picked her up gently and started across. This time, the passage was not so smooth. A fierce wind kicked up when he was part way across. Inexperienced at flying, Nuparu did not know how to compensate. Thrown off balance, he lost his grip on Hali. Jala watched in horror. No doubt any of the Toa could save her with their elemental powers, but they had had little to no practice using them so far. A miscalculation would mean her death. Later, Jala would realize he never actually gave any thought to what he did. Instead, he just ran, leapt out into midair, and caught Hali. The added weight should have sent them both plunging into the lava, but instead Jala used the change in momentum to execute a perfect mid-air somersault that carried them toward the far edge. He landed feet first on the lip of the gorge. The other Toa just stared at him in disbelief.
"Whoa," said Huki. "That was a new one."
"Even Toa Liwa would have admired that move," added Kongu. "Who taught you that?"
Jala put Hali down and shrugged.
"No one.
It was the only thing to do, but it shouldn't have worked. We should both be in lava. I can't understand how...
"Could it be your mask?" asked Hali.
Kongu chuckled.
"What? It's a mask of leaping?"
Nuparu landed next to the group.
"Or something much more powerful," he said. "We should test it, Jala, and... I'm sorry about what happened."
All of the Toa waited for Kongu to make some cutting remark. Instead, the Toa of Air threw his arm around the shoulders of the Toa of Earth and said,
"Come here, Toa Hero. Let me quick teach you a little something about updrafts and downdrafts. I don't want you crashing and breaking that mask."
Hidden among the rocks, Vezok watched the 6 newcomers. They were Toa all right, but novices. This, he decided, would be no trouble at all. He chewed up and spit out Rookie Toa. In fact, it might even be fun to use Zamor spheres on a few of them and let them fight one another. Smiling, he emerged from his hiding place and took aim. Matoran spotted the threat too late. Even as he shouted out a warning, Vezok's Zamor sphere struck his body. There was a flash of electricity as it passed through him. The Toa waited. Vezok waited. Most of all, Matoran waited to see what would happen. Nothing. Vezok looked at his launcher, annoyed. He fired again. Same result.
"What's going on here?"
he grumbled.
"You should be enslaved."
"Oh, is that what it does?" said Matoran. He raised his ice sword. "Then I don't feel so bad about doing this." Matoran expected a blast of ice to fly from his blade, much like he had seen Kopaka Nuva create 100 times. But this was different. His blade glowed with a bright light, and the blue-white beam of ice that it hurled was interlaced with lightning. It struck Vezok dead on, simultaneously freezing and jolting him. The blue-armoured Piraka hit the ground hard. The force of the attack had been unexpected, but he wasn't worried.
He could already feel this new tower's power being added to his own. Laughing, he launched a blast of electrically charged ice at the red and yellow tower nearby. This time, Jala knew it was the mask. There was no possible way he could dodge the ice, yet somehow he managed to twist his body out of the way. For a moment, he almost sensed that the mask was regarding him with approval.
You picked the wrong tower to throw snowballs at, he snapped.
His weapon, too, was glowing, and the flames it shot sizzled with pure electricity. Again, Vezok was struck, and again he went down. But he didn't stay down. "Get ready," said Matoran. "He duplicated my power when I used it on him. He'll do the same with Jala's, but I'm guessing he can't handle more than one power at a time."
Vezok raised both arms and smiled broadly.
Guess again.
Blasts of fire and ice flew from the Piraka's hands. Matoran and Hali were sent reeling by the unleashed elemental energy.
That's 2 down, Vezok thought. There should be a quick way to take out the other 4, but...
He frowned. Ever since the accident, he had lost the ability to think tactically the way he used to. He was still smarter than he looked, but that intellectual edge was missing. Still, he knew who had stolen it from him, and he would get it back as soon as these Toa were dead.
Huki, Kongu, Jala, and Nuparu stood shoulder to shoulder. The Tur of Air reached out with his mask of telepathy to probe the Piraka, but recoiled almost immediately. "Muaka bones! It's a pest hole in there," he exclaimed. "I've crawled through Nui Rama nests that were cleaner."
Who are you? What do you want here? Asked Jala.
"The name is Vezok," answered the Piraka. "My partners and I already claimed this island by right of conquest, and we don't like trespassers." "That's too bad," said Nuparu.
I know what you are,"
Vezok cut him off.
"Toa. I could smell you a kio away. You all have that doomed do-gooder stench."
Huki hefted a huge boulder. Vezok only smiled.
"Drop that or I'll freeze-fry your 2 pals," he said.
The Tur of Stone shrugged, and casually tossed the rock aside. Only Matoran noticed it hit another rock, ricochet, hit a second, and so on.
"Do yourselves a favour," Vezok continued. "Clear off Voyanui while you still can, or you'll wind up like those other Toa. You can't beat 1 Piraka, let alone 6.
Now it was Huki's turn to smile.
"Guess again."
The boulder ricocheted one last time and slammed into Vezok's back. Stunned more by the surprise of the blow than from its force, Vezok stumbled forward. Nuparu triggered his mask power and shot through the air, slamming into the Piraka's midsection and knocking him to the ground. The other 3 Toa closed in. Vezok snarled, energies crackling around his open palms. Jala rested the tip of his energized flame sword on the Piraka's throat.
"Think about it," said the Tur of Fire. "Can you get off a blast before I do? Are you fast enough?"
Jala cocked his head and locked eyes with Vezok. "I don't need a mask of telepathy to know what's going through your head. You figure we're new to being Toa, maybe not quick enough or skilled enough to use our powers. And you're right. But, see, there's only one problem. I'm so new I can't always control my flame. I might want to just singe you, Vezok, but, poor novice Toa that I am, I could slip and burn your head clean off." Vezok lowered his hands. Kongu turned away to check on Matoran and Hali. His mask power was almost impossible to turn off, and the last thing he wanted was any more exposure to Vezok's thoughts. "Get up," ordered Jala. "You're going to take us to those other Toa you mentioned."
"Sure,"
Vezok replied. "I never like the smell of something burning, especially when it's me." Jala shoved the Piraka ahead of them. Huki and Matoran took the flanks, with Kongu acting as rear guard. They had only gone a short distance when the Tur of Air picked up a disturbing image from Vezok's mind. He cried out, but not fast enough. The Piraka had hurled an ice blast and a fire blast at each other, creating a wall of steam when they met. Kongu used his control over wind to dissipate the cloud, but by that time, the Piraka was gone.
"Do we track him?" asked Matoran. Jala shook his head.
"He knows the island. We don't.
But he may be our only lead to the Toa Nuva."
An Onu Matoran stepped out from behind a cluster of rocks. "If you follow him, he will pick you off one by one. He will be heading back to the stronghold to warn Zaktan of your approach. We need to make our plans before he reaches there." "Zaktan? Stronghold? Who are you?" asked Matoran, feeling like he had walked in on one of Hali's tales in the middle. "My name is Garan. I will tell you my story on our journey. I'd suggest you listen if you ever hope to leave this island alive." Garan led the Toa on a long journey, sticking close to the coastline all the way. He explained that the waters around Voyanui were so treacherous that the Piraka did not expect enemies to arrive by sea. They focused their attention on the air. Apparently, they expected someone to come looking for them, someone infinitely more frightening than Toa.
"You are Toa, aren't you?" he asked at one point. "But you don't look like Toa Nuva."
"We're not," said Jala. He thought about the lightning bolts that had unleashed their powers, the glow of their faces behind their masks, the way their weapons radiated energy. Then he said, "No, not Toa Nuva. Toa Inika." The name caught the other Toa by surprise, but it made sense. Inika was the Matoran word for the energies of a star. No one reacted quite as much as Harlee, though. For a brief moment, the headache she felt intensified, and then it lessened almost completely. She allowed herself a moment of relief before wondering just what had changed. Was it the name Jala had thought up? Or was it the sight of the volcano in the distance that had caused the pressure on her mind to ease? Or was it both? Almost as if in response, she felt a small jolt of pain. Her hands flew up to her mask. As soon as she took it off, all the pain stopped.
"So it is the Kanohi," she said to herself. "Yet it's not an attack. Somehow I know that. No, the mask is trying to direct us. But where?"
"This way," said Garan. He led the Toa Inika through a tunnel in the rock. It wound up and up, growing narrower as it rose. At the top, Garan slid aside a stone and disappeared inside a hole. Jala led the Toa through the opening. Inside was a small chamber. Garan and 4 other Matoran waited within.
"This is all of you?" asked Kongu. 5 Matoran on an entire island?"
5 still free, Bolter answered.
"Make that 6.
The 2 groups turned to see Dalu slipping through another entrance. She spared a smile for Bolter before giving her report to Garan.
"I tried to get away, but didn't make it very far. I saw enough to know you're right. The Piraka alliance is fracturing." "Then it is time to strike," said Kazi. "Never a better one," Dalu agreed. "Hakan, Radak, Avak and Thok are nowhere to be found. Zaktan is in a rage over it. No one is watching the Matoran workers on the slopes of the volcano." "Slow down," said Matoro. "What's going on here? Where are the Toa Nuva?"
"Dead, if they're lucky," Garan replied.
"If they're not, Zaktan has them. They're looking for a treasure hidden on this island. Your friend said it was a mask needed to save the life of the Great Spirit. They enslaved our people to help them get their claws on it. We are going to stop them."
Garan walked up to Jala and looked up at the Toa fire.
"Your fellow Toa tried to help and paid the price. If you want to turn and go, we will understand. But if you want to aid us, you must decide now. This chance to hit the Piraka hard may not come again."
Jala instantly knew what his decision would be, but he was determined not to be Tahu or Vakama or other Toa who had acted rashly. He turned to the others. One by one, they nodded their heads. Then he looked back at Garan. "You point us in the right direction," said the Toa fire. "We'll handle the hitting." End of chapter 4.